Hello, welcome to the Breck Buzz. The show is going to be telling you all about what's been happening the last month in the town of Breckenridge town government. I got two wonderful guests with me from the town council, Erin, Gigliello, and Ben Brewer. Thank you very much for joining us to fill the public in on a very exciting month.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, always. It's always good to have you. Well, let's start off with probably the most exciting news: election.
That's right. Very exciting.
And I'm going to have Erin take 5A.
Okay.
And you take 2A.
Okay, sounds good.
But you got to explain to people what they are. So
okay.
Go ahead. 5A.
Okay, so 5A was the continuation of a tax that goes toward our housing projects, so affordable housing essentially. And this was just a continuation of what we had before. And this isn't going to solve all of our housing issues by a long shot, but it will continue to move forward what we have been doing with the Summit Housing Authority, which is a place where people can contact in order to get into affordable housing, and they offer a lot of informational services and things like that. And it passed by a lot, 76%, which is
wonderful.
Huge.
Mm-hmm.
When the survey was, when the community was surveyed, I believe that people thought that it would pass by 77%. So they were right on. I mean, this community definitely accepts supporting affordable housing, rightfully so, because it is a great need in our community.
And it comes at a great time with all the rental things
Yes.
we're hearing about right now.
Yes, exactly. There's quite a need, especially coming up on the winter season. And these projects take a long time. So it's not, I don't want anybody to think that, okay, this passed, now all of these projects, all these buildings are going to go up right away and people will have housing for this winter. It does take a long time, and it is a process. And I know that we'll talk about the projects that we're working on in a little bit, but this allows for the whole county to get involved.
Right, and we'll also talk a little bit in a few minutes about what else the town puts into housing as part of the budget.
Right.
So we'll be right back to that. Now, to the ski lift ticket tax.
Ski lift ticket tax. This was Measure 2A, which the voters in Breckenridge were able to vote on, and it passed overwhelmingly by about 83 to 13%. So the voters in Breckenridge, I think they did a great thing by, first of all, it was a vote of confidence that the town got. I think that the town trusts us to manage that money well, and it will guarantee the town a minimum of $3.5 million per year to work on issues related to transit and parking in the town of Breckenridge. And so we expect the cumulative effect of that over years to be very positive for the town. I think the parking and transit issues in town have become, for some people, intractable and just unacceptable. And I think it at least gives us a chance to, and the funding to seek real solutions to parking and transit problems in Breckenridge. And so it is a ski lift ticket tax. It's only on walk-up one-day lift tickets in the town of Breckenridge. It doesn't apply to summer activities.
And multi-day, just Breckenridge. Single day and multi-day in Breckenridge.
Oh yeah, single day and multi-day.
Right.
So if someone walks up to the box office and they want to buy a 3-day ticket
Breck only.
to Breck only, then that applies as well. But the Skiria, I think, had no problem guaranteeing us $3.5 million. So they know that it's going to generate at least that amount, I think. The agreement that we did in late August with the ski area to sort of codify what it would be like and everything it would cover, I think set the stage for that incredible win at the ballot box. And I couldn't be happier with the voters of Breckenridge for recognizing the opportunity that we had there to really start working on parking and transit issues in the town of Breckenridge in a very meaningful way with meaningful dollars. And I guess, I'll end my comments by with an appeal to the citizens of Breckenridge to get involved now. Actually, the hard work starts now, and we need the community to get involved in administering this new fund that will be created and using it as well as we possibly can for the things that will actually change the condition on the ground for the average guest and the average citizen. I think it's just critical that we spend the time now, on the front end to make sure that the next several decades, while the money's coming in, is used as efficiently and as well as possible. So, we're nothing's off the table. We're looking at parking garages, we're looking at better bus service, different buses, technology, better technology to tell people when the transit system is operating, how many buses there are, when the bus is going to arrive, all those kinds of things. And we're basically nothing's on off the table at this point. And I really just want to appeal to everyone in Breckenridge to get involved if you care about this issue, because your input will matter more now than it ever has in the past.
So both 5A and 2A really hit on two of the council's biggest goals that
right.
This council at least has set for themselves. While we are talking about the parking and transit, because it is, you actually hesitated on the budget, waiting to hear how these things went. So we'll talk about the budget in a second, but just for the public's benefit, as Ben indicated, what can they expect now with this parking and transit type of framework? Obviously, the money doesn't come for almost a year.
That's right. That's right. In fact, they won't start collecting until next winter season.
Right.
So we won't see that guaranteed $3.5 million until the following year, in 2017, essentially. So right now we do our research. Right. We do some more surveys. We talk to the town. We see what they want. And Ben is exactly right that there are a lot of options on the table, and we do ask the community to get involved. But yeah, we'll hire some people to do some of this groundwork with us, and we can see what our community really needs. I know that some figures were thrown out before about parking garage and things like that, but we're not married to any of that. And how it'll look too. I know that during the forums that we held earlier this year, some people were really concerned about it looking, Breckenridge, making it look not like this monstrosity of a parking structure, which we're not. Again, we're not completely sold on either, but we could do some really interesting things, have some affordable housing, maybe lining it or retail or who knows. So there are lots of different things that we can do. And so we'll do that research, and then, we'll move forward in 2017.
Good.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that even in the paper, they talked about a parking garage on F lot. And I just want to make it very clear that the town council and the people who will actually be eventually making those decisions haven't committed to any one solution or any measure. We think it's very important to listen to the people in the town, to see what's important to them and to act accordingly. Now, that being said, a parking garage on F lot emerged as a viable option and sort of the number one option, just based on the studies we've done in the past and the learning and thinking and collective thinking that we've done, as a group. So yeah, I mean, there is sort of a bias towards a parking garage on F lot and then a whole bunch of transit enhancements to make our transit system a lot better. But we haven't made any final decisions, and in fact, that process begins now. So when you see opportunities to get involved in task force, the parking transit task force, open houses that we might have in the future, you can always come to our town council meetings and give input there. You can write us letters, you can write us emails. Really any input that we receive, we listen to, we read those emails, we listen to those comments. And we're very eager, I'm very eager at this stage to get as much input from the community as we can get.
Right.
Well, and something else to think about is that in April we'll have elections There'll be 3 open seats and a new mayor. So the face of this could also change with that.
Sure. Every election's always an interesting dynamic.
It's true.
Well, and one of the most important things is to look at the winner and see what's happening today on the ground and where we do have issues, a lot of which we know about, but really try to link that to what the solution will be. And that south end of town is a critical area for that, because we already know it's pretty congested with pedestrians and all the other things that occur down there. So stay tuned, and there'll be a lot of exciting stuff probably in the next couple of months through the winter season. So and a lot of chances to be involved. So
Yeah.
so let's go to the other big topic. As we call it, the blueprint of the town for the next year, which is our budget. And now that the council has resolved 2 questions, is housing, ballot question, and parking, most of your decisions sound like you'll move forward with. But let's highlight some of the stuff you talked about at the budget retreat and what were the focuses. And we want to hit on service levels. We want to hit on a little bit of where you decided to make other funding decisions. And obviously, we always want to talk a little bit about capital. And always a big topic that we'll hit on is where the money we have in the bank is going to go in the next few years, because there are some big things that are going to occur. And Ben, I'm going to let you start this time.
Well, the budget retreat was, thanks, Tim. The budget retreat was really another great budget retreat. I think, we were all on the same page on a lot of issues. We did go back and forth on a few things, and I think this council has the ability to work through difficult issues and then come to really great decisions that work well for the town. I think my biggest takeaway from the budget retreat was that this council prioritizes housing above almost every other issue. We did everything we possibly could do for parking and transit, and then the budget retreat occurred before the election, so we didn't yet know the result of the election, but we still decided to put an extra $1 million into the housing fund so that we can in the future work on housing issues, and so that there will be funding for that. And I think the intent of the council with that action was to put an extra $1 million into the housing fund every year going forward. We can only make that decision for 1 year in any given budget retreat, but that was our intention, so that future councils will have the ability to work on housing issues without feeling financially strapped to do so. We can do all kinds of things with that money. And so the $1 million is in addition to the $2.5 million we put in there on an annual basis. And so I think it's great, because we just have been working on Pinewood 2. And so we spent a good sum of money, about $10 million, ensuring that project would go forward. And so that extra infusion of capital ensures that we can take on the next project and make it successful when that comes around. And so, that was my biggest takeaway, was that I think this council, once parking and transit had been sort of, we had done everything we could, we really put dollars into housing to try and solve some of those problems. I think housing right now is maybe our biggest challenge. And I think everyone on council recognizes that. We really just simply don't have enough housing for the people who work in Breckenridge. And housing has become so expensive that, making housing attainable for our citizens is just an enormous challenge. I don't think, even if we spent every dollar that we had today, it still wouldn't solve the problem. But I just want everyone out there to know that we're working on it, we're prioritizing it, and that as far as the budget retreat is concerned, and $1 million extra dollars, I think makes a statement that that's a big priority for us.
Erin, some of your impressions from the budget retreat?
And just to add on to that,
Yeah,
so that
please.
means that our, so that was a $1 million additional, so that's 2.5 total correct?
From the town.
And we get 900,000 from 5A.
Right.
So there's that. We also talked about childcare, continuing the childcare scholarship program. We have made a lot of changes. Well, not a lot of changes. We've made some significant changes so that we can guarantee that the people who really need childcare scholarships are getting it. And so we've made those changes over the past year, and we re-upped our commitment to these scholarship programs, and I believe we're good through 2020. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. The next stage, which we spoke a little bit about, is potentially building another child care facility. Now, with the growth in Wellington, the development of Lincoln Park, as well as the development that we're planning on Block 11 and Huron Landing, things like that, we will eventually need another facility, but we have not committed anything to that yet. So that was discussed. What else? We also talked about capital improvements. Would you want me to talk about that? Or
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Everything's fair game
So,
here.
all right.
We won't let people know what happened.
We had an extensive conversation about the rec center improvements. Now, we've been talking about rec center improvements at least since I've started on council, which I made known. But we have said definitely yes to a $200,000 elevator in the rec center, which is very much needed. We've also said yes to studying what exactly we need for $150,000. So that's how much the study costs, not how much we've committed toward the rec center. But there are a lot of really exciting things on there, and it's not as clean cut as you might think. You might think like, oh, everything just needs to be revamped, or just build onto the rec center, or cover the tennis courts, which these are all ideas that we've thrown around. But we only have so much money, and we want to be able to service the most people, and I'd like to see at least a plan that we can grow with. So maybe next year or in 2017, we know what we're gonna do for that year, and that'll make a significant improvement. And then the next year, in phases. But this is all going to get studied. So there's that. We did commit to covering the outdoor rink at the ice rink, which is pretty exciting. I know that there's a very large group that will be very happy about that. And it's interesting because then the maintenance fees at the ice rink will actually decrease, because then we don't have to do snow removal there. So there is some cost savings there. We've also committed $450,000 to studying the Riverwalk Center. We've also been talking, I think since I've started, about indoor bathrooms at the Riverwalk Center and a new lobby, which I think we all agree is needed, but exactly how to do it will require a survey. So that's what we've committed to this year.
And it's directly linked to what we do on FLOT.
That's right.
So they're
That's
gonna be,
correct.
So they're going to be done together. Right?
Yes, yes. So if we put a structure on FLOT, this will have to work with that as well.
Right.
And then an irrigation system at the golf course.
Right. The original 18 holes.
Yes, the original 18 holes. We'll get a new irrigation system.
So good ones.
Yeah.
Ben, keep adding to it. What else did you guys talk about?
We talked about actually an additional purchase of solar.
Oh yeah,
That's right.
sustainability.
Yeah.
Another one of your goals.
Sustainability is one of our big goals in town. We really like sustainability, especially when it's economically advantageous for us. And solar is one of those initiatives that we've undertaken that has proven to be very financially advantageous for us. And the reason is because some of our brilliant staff people figured out, like you and Brian and people like that in our staff, they figured out that they could cherry pick the most expensive meters in terms of power that are offset by the solar. So understanding what we pay per kilowatt hour for every single meter in town, and then just sorting those by most expensive and then offsetting those meters has made our solar purchases incredibly advantageous. Our current solar garden, the one down on the McCain property and up on the Stilson property, both 500 kilowatt hours, those will pay for themselves in about 6 years. And so every year after that, they're basically producing free power for us. And so that's an incredible program, and it makes so much sense on so many levels. But we identified an opportunity to purchase 500 kilowatt hours additional solar from a solar garden that's over in Lake County. And what that'll allow us to do is offset some very expensive water pumps that we will have to install with the addition of the new water plant. And so it actually makes a big difference to the bottom line in terms of the feasibility of building a new water plant. There's so many moving parts and there's so many different financial pieces to make that work. Offsetting some of the cost of the power that it takes to pump water around and especially pump water uphill is great. And so we're aggressively pursuing that. We purchased an additional 500 kilowatt hours from the Lake County solar garden, and which means that we can offset those very expensive meters, and those will probably pay for themselves in 6 years, just like the McCain property and the Stilson Placer property solar gardens. So we're really happy about that. We think it's a smart move financially, and in the future, when we can operate those big water pumps basically for free into the future, that's a huge win for Breckenridge. It makes the water plant feasible.
Let's talk a little bit about the town's commitment to the core town, or the council, in terms of both safety and snow plowing.
Sure. Which today it's snowing, or when this was filmed. So it's right on the top of our minds, and hopefully we get a lot of snow. With that, obviously people are concerned about driving around in the snow, and it's challenging because it's not like anybody tells you, oh, you're going to get this much snow this year. So what we do is we have some reserve funds that we can tap into. We've started staffing up sooner for snow plowing, just so that, and guests are coming in sooner. I mean, it seems like this fall we haven't really had any downtime. It's been a beautiful autumn, and it's been really great with visitors, but we also want our visitors to be safe. So we'll have snow plowing starting sooner, or at least it'll be staffed up sooner, and we have some reserve funds to tap into just in case it is an epic snow year, which everybody really wants. We also have somebody dedicated to walking Main Street and seeing where the icy spots are, so that they can either cover them with sand or point it out to whoever's plowing the sidewalks, things like that, so that we can hopefully better maintain our sidewalks here too, as well as adding onto the heated sidewalks,
right,
which has been a success so far. In addition to that, we have received some concerns about panhandling in the middle of town, in the core of town. So one of the solutions is dedicating a person, a community service officer, to that, and just to make sure that everything is going as smoothly as possible. Not somebody who's intimidating or anything like that, but just to be there and support, and the evenings as well, things like that. And because we've had these concerns, really what we want people to do, what we ask the community to do, is to, if you have a complaint, to call it in, and call it in immediately to dispatch. Not to use 911 or anything like that, but to call it into dispatch, and then they'll take care of your concern.
Right, getting an officer to respond.
That's
right
right.
away. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, it really takes a partnership to really make that thing work real well.
Exactly.
We need their
exactly.
help, and we'll make sure that the
Right.
resources are there to do it.
And it's important to recognize everybody's freedoms too. This is, yes.
Yes.
We live in a community of freedoms.
The court has told us so.
That's right.
Yes. Ben, talk a little bit about the other big funds that we have and what's going to happen in those in the coming. You mentioned a little bit about the water, but we actually have some big projects we're working on here in the next couple of years that are going to really spend an awful lot of money.
We do. The two biggest projects that come to mind are the new water plant and potentially a parking garage of some sort. The 2A, what it did was it created a new fund just for parking and transit. And so that will be funded by the funds that come in from 2A, the ski lift ticket tax. And so it'll be a self-sustaining fund. It'll grow over time. And so,
but the town also spends quite a bit already in its budget for transit and things like that. So it'll be a combination of those two that'll be the whole program.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what do we spend on parking and transit now? About $2.5 million.
$2.5 million. Mm-hmm.
$2.5 million, and so to that we'll add the $3.5 million, and that's a good little sizable amount of money to spend every year, trying to solve and mitigate some of our parking and transit issues. And the whole idea is to get people out of their cars. When the people are in their cars, they're not spending money, they're not having as much fun, they're not enjoying Breckenridge the way we'd like them to. When we give them convenient places to put their cars and then walk around town or bike, it just makes everything better. And so that's what we're working on. That's what we're trying to achieve, is getting people out of their cars. So the new parking transit fund, I think, is one good one. The water fund is one that is basically a fund that's self-sustaining. All of the funds that come in from water fees and PIFs go into the water fund, and that's what funds our efforts in terms of providing, the best water in the world for our citizens. And we're close to the source, so we have this great water to start with. And what we'd like to do is build a new water plant, and you've been working on that for a decade, probably. Really. It's been an initiative in town for a long time. It's just very, very slow going when it comes to water issues. You've got water rights to consider, you've got capital, to do any kind of big project. And then you have distribution, which is the infrastructure of plumbing that goes all throughout the community, taking that potable water out to all the different areas of our community. I think one really cool thing that's going to enable going into the future is sort of a shift in the way we look at water. In the past, we've been very tight with our water, and we've only provided it to people within the town limits because we had such a finite amount of it, because we only had one water plant. And by the way, that one water plant is in a location that's rather vulnerable, in my opinion, to forest fire, and it's just a single point of failure for water. If that water plant were to ever, suffer some sort of accident or forest fire or something like that, essentially the town would be out of luck. So we want to create another water plant to have some redundancy in our production of potable water, but also provide water to areas outside of the town limits, in areas where they need it, where they're on wells. Back when the population wasn't so intense, I think, to have a whole neighborhood with well and septic really made sense. But these days, as we're approaching build out and we have such an intensity of population here, having wells and septic all in the same area doesn't make as much sense as it did, because the two don't really go together very well. So getting people out onto our water system is both a public health and safety issue, as well as just a convenience and a quality issue. So it's going to enable that in the future, and the water fund will make that possible. And the water fund, we have a very healthy balance in there, but we have this big expense coming down the pike in a capital project, which is a new water plant, and that's could be a $30 million project, and that's not counting the distribution system. So we think thanks to you and the staff, that we have a handle on it, that we can fund it with the initiatives that we've put in place, and we're taking baby steps in that direction. And I think in the next couple years, if not within the next year, we will probably pull the trigger on taking some bigger steps in that direction.
Adult steps, huh?
Yeah, big ones, like basically executing on a building and funding and designing. I mean, first we have to plan it, which is expensive in and of itself. Second, we would have to execute on that plan, and those are two very expensive things to do, but exciting things, and also very optimistic for our community in the future.
Good. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we'll finish up talking about the budget and hit on a couple other items the council's been working on. You're watching the Breck Buzz. And welcome back to the Breck Buzz. Again, my guests are Ben Brewer and Erin Gigliello from the Town Council of Breckenridge, who've been filling you in on this budget retreat the council just went through. We're going to wrap that up with just a couple more comments about what the council talked about, and of course, housing. We've kind of alluded to it, but why don't you give kind of a quick update on the projects that are on the drawing board here for the next year or so?
All right. Well, for housing, currently we're working on Pinewood 2. I mean, that's the building that you see up next to Pinewood 1, across the street from the Breck Rec Center. So that's in the works. People should be able to get in there by next winter. The next up would be Huron Landing, which is on County Road 450. That's a combination project with the county. So that will hopefully be built for the winter of 2018. And then we just did a land exchange with CMC. Now they had some lands that was next to Block 11, and we had some land that was next to CMC. So we did a land exchange, and that project is called Denison Placer. And so that will hopefully be built by the following year for 2019. So we do have a few things in the works, as well as developing Block 11 at large with some. And there are a lot of beautiful things going in there. I know that the Breckenridge Open Space Advisory Commission has been working with us to develop some trails there, some more affordable housing, the water plants, and solar panels as well.
That's great. Good stuff. Yeah. That's all part of the overall budget. Any other quick comments on the budget before we kind of go into that you want to highlight for the public? By the way, we ought to tell them that we are having a public hearing on the budget coming up next on the 11th. And then the budget actually gets approved the second meeting in November, assuming any final changes, including no changes in the property taxes. They stay the same. Mm-hmm. Always good to point that out.
and they're low.
They're very low.
Just over 5 mils.
Right.
Which is, if you look statewide, that's very, very low, especially for a town.
Right.
Yeah.
So all that will be occurring in November, so the public is certainly invited, and we have the budget on the website, so people can check that out. It's a fairly thick book, the Bible as we call it. So all those things, so we certainly encourage the public to check out. If you have questions, obviously council and the staff are always available. Erin, you mentioned the land exchange with CMC. This is kind of a unique partnership with CMC, since we originally gave them the land for the development of their campus.
That's right.
And they're doing some planning for some housing potentially too.
Potentially, yes. Well, we've had talks with them. We're moving, I think. I think we are. But yeah, that should be really interesting, because CMC has become a bit of a destination for students, and with their growing into having a 4-year degree in a couple of areas, people more and more come to town to go to CMC, and they work in town, so why shouldn't they have affordable housing? So yes, they are trying to, they will be hopefully moving forward, and hopefully we'll be a partner with them. Yeah.
Great. Ben, let's expand on the solar discussion, because sure. As a part of the McCain master plan, we actually set aside some land out there in case we ever got a chance for another solar garden. Looks like that might happen, huh?
It very well could happen, and it's because of the success of the one that we've already done. With a 6-year payoff, you have about 24 years of the life cycle of the solar garden where you're basically getting free energy, and that's a lot of 500 kilowatt hours is a lot of energy. You can, that's about 180 homes worth per year. So that's a lot of electricity, and we set aside some more land on the McCain property to someday potentially build another solar garden out there, another 500 kilowatt hours. And so we have the land, and we have the will, and we've demonstrated that it's actually fiscally responsible to do so. So I expect us to do that if we haven't already.
Well, we hopefully will hear soon,
I
right?
think, yeah.
Why don't we expand on McCain anyway, since it's right in the middle of a public process.
Yeah.
We reported on last time the council was working on an update. You want to continue with the highlights about what the McCain master plan also includes, in addition to that solar site that's a part of ongoing discussions right now?
Well, as I recall, we first of all, the new water plant would be located on McCain. It would have to be the best looking water plant ever created for the community probably to accept it in that location. It would probably be on the location where the bears and the chickens and the roosters are now, in that general location. And the reason why that location is so important is because it's in a place where water is easily pumped and distributed to the places it needs to go. Namely, there's a big water tank that serves the Highlands neighborhood, near there. And if the water plant were located there, it would be much less expensive to build the distribution system and the pumping of the water. So that's a very advantageous location for the water plant. And so someday in the future, the town should probably expect to see a water plant there. And it would be landscaped and done very nicely so that the entrance to Breckenridge and would be nice looking. But I think we've prioritized water as it's one of our big priorities as a town. And that spans many different councils going back into the past and hopefully into the future, because water is just so important. It's one of those big issues in the West, and it's going to be a bigger issue in the future. And so we really have to get our water ducks in a row
No
for
pun
the
intended.
future. No pun intended. Yeah. So water plant is one element of the McCain property. There's snow storage on there a little bit. There's the new recycling center is actually already under construction, and it'll be ready to transfer over to that site next spring. And so the recycling program is run by the county. And we provided a site for them to transfer the recycling center from its present location over to the McCain property. So you're going to see a change in the location of the recycling center coming this spring. And on the site of the present recycling center, you're going to see the new Huron Landing attainable housing rental housing units there that are being developed by the town. And that'll create about 24 new rental units that will be basically attainable from the, what did we say?
80% AMI.
80% AMI level.
And maybe some below, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
But those are rental units,
Right.
just so everyone knows they're not for sale. But we think that's a fabulous location for that. It also affords us the opportunity to improve the pedestrian accessibility of County Road 450, which is that has been one of my personal goals, to be honest with you, because having lived in the Wellington neighborhood and driving up and down County Road 450, I'm just intimately aware of how unsafe it can be for pedestrians and other people trying to use it. So once they start development on that project, you'll see better sidewalks and crosses, street crossings there, which will really help the pedestrian situation on County Road 450. So that's a positive outcome, as well as the units right here in town. And so there's that. And then in addition to all of that, on McCain, I think we set aside some acreage for attainable housing in the future. Just knowing that, Block 11 is a big piece of property. It's essentially all the property from, Upper Blue Elementary to CMC. But housing is such an issue for us that we thought it prudent to set aside some of the acreage on the McCain property for attainable housing someday. And we have no plans to develop that right away, but the idea is to put a place marker for it so that we're not completely hamstrung in the future in terms of having no more land for attainable housing. So
We shouldn't have forget about open space over there, huh?
That's right. That did come up.
So McCain is also going to have a big chunk,
Yes,
and along with the river restoration.
that's right. That's right. And yeah, so the projects that Open Space will be working on for this coming up year that we've discussed is, well, obviously land acquisition. We do that not all the time, but we do that quite frequently, as well as building trails and working on trails. And yeah, working hand in hand with the town with developing trails around these properties and hopefully, adding some more park features.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's worth noting that 1/3 of the McCain purchase when we bought it was made with open space funds, and so we reserved 1/3 of that property approximately to be open space, and that is basically the river corridor. And restoring the river there, I think, it's a watershed moment for Breckenridge to actually, take that river that has been running under the rock piles for how many decades, probably a century at least, and restore the river, just as we did, the section of river just upstream from there. Except this one is actually going to meander more like a natural river. And it'll be, I think, one of the most beautiful places to go and fish, and there will be trails there in the future to access on bikes and on foot. It's going to be a beautiful open space area, and the views from there are incredible. And I think the river will be a lot healthier.
Be a big change from a big gravel pit.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
To clean up those
And
tailings, yeah.
It's a $4.5 million project that the town had prioritized many years ago, and we just never, we didn't have the money, and we never were able to actually execute on that project. And now we have the money and the political will, and so we're doing the river restoration, finally finishing the Blue River, so that the Blue River can run more healthfully.
And waited a lot of years for grants that dried up.
Yeah, the Army Corps of Engineers and EPA and everything. None of them really came through, and we realized that we could do it less expensively without them anyway.
Right.
So we're doing that.
A little topic that some people have an excitement about is the horse carriage downtown.
Yes.
A little bit of controversy, but one that's also a kind of a visitor ambiance type of thing. The council had to deal with that.
That's right. This was an interesting one because the horse and carriage has been in town for a very long time, and people do look forward to seeing it. It slows traffic. So there were some discussions. About it, and an agreement that we came to with the current people who are there now. It's my understanding that it will transition to some new people soon, and this is all about approving of licenses. And so this one was approved with some conditions, and once it changes hands, then that will have to be approved as well. So we might go through this again. Most likely we'll go through this again. And so what we came up with is that we need to be assured that the horses are treated well, that they're traded out, that if they need to see the vets, they will see the vets, and they will only be on Main Street for one block of their routes. And so theoretically, it will only slow down traffic for that one block. And I also know, I did talk to the people at the Welcome Center, and that is one of their most popular tickets or events that they sell, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a popular item too.
It is very popular. I did do a little research there. It is very popular.
Well, people love getting their picture taken there.
Right.
That's
This
for
is
sure.
true. This is
So
true.
it's kind of accommodating both the inconvenience with the ambiance, I guess, huh?
Yes, yes.
That's what the council's so good at, all those
That's
balances.
Right, right. Lots of plates.
Well, that kind of wraps up our big topics. Anything we missed that you want to highlight for the community for this past month?
No, thank you for voting, though.
Yes.
That was a great,
Thank
great
you.
voter turnout.
Thank you, voters.
Yeah.
Thank you, Breckenridge. I think you made a very wise decision to approve 2A, and I look forward to working on that in the future. There is something, Tim. I happen to know that this is your last Breck Buzz.
Yes, it is.
And I think you did your first one in 2009.
Yep. That's right. Yeah.
And Brad, twiddling the knobs back there, you've been working with him since 2009 on Breck
Yeah.
Buzz.
Almost feel like David Letterman and my sidekick, Brad, huh?
That's right. So thank you, Brad.
But not as funny.
Yeah, and thank you, Tim, for doing it all these years and in helping to inform the public and putting it out there. And you have just 2 town council meetings remaining as the town manager.
That's correct.
And I think it's important to recognize you for all of your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. Great 15 years plus.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And if we can find an old picture, I'm sure I had more hair back then.
It'd be great to do a side by side.
Yeah,
what they
exactly.
do with presidents, yeah.
It would be great, yeah.
No, but I do want to say thanks for all the years, and it really is, Breck Buzz was a creation of the town and a lot of the community to help keep the public informed about what our council works on, and there will probably be a change in format. So folks can look forward to maybe a little different sprucing up and get rid of the old and bring in some new, as we say. So I want to thank Erin and Ben for joining me, and thank you for the acknowledgement of so many years of service. And for my final Breck Buzz, we'll sign off and join us again next month for somebody else. They'll be here.